he think he's doing bringing the press in here?
You know Leo Farnsworth?
Well, maybe. I don't know Leo Farnsworth.
Exactly.
Leo, we have a corporate responsibility which extends to thousands of shareholders of moderate means, people who in many cases are less well off than the ecological groups that are fighting us.
But if we were a football team, would you say we had a winning season so far?
Leo, I haven't the faintest idea
Yeah,
what
just
you're talking
generally, would you say we got a winning season? Huh?
I would say on balance, we have had an extremely good year.
All right, okay. We've got a winning season. Now, what do you do when you're ahead in the game?
Leo,
What do you do?
Leo, I don't know what you want.
I'll tell you what you do. You don't make mistakes. That's what you do. You don't make mistakes. You don't gamble unnecessarily. You got to protect your lead. You don't go passing from deep in your own end zone. You protect your players. You make sure that nobody gets hurt. You got to use these guys in the next game. And this is not just one game. We won this game, didn't we? We got to stay in shape for the rest of the game. That's the responsible thing to do, all right? Look, it's like when everybody was supposed to stop eating grapes. Well, some guys did, but I didn't because I didn't know anything about it and I like grapes. Well, a lot of guys like tuna. They're just going to keep eating it anyway. But I was thinking, what if we had a good guy tuna company that was on the Porpoise team? A lot of these guys would buy that so the kids wouldn't get mad at them, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we're taking into account the expense.
Well, yeah, but we don't care how much it costs, do we? We just care how much it makes. And if it costs too much, we charge a penny more. We make it part of the game plan. Would you pay a penny to save a fish who thinks?
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, and we handle all the lawsuits that way. Let the other team build the power plants in all the wrong places. Let the other quarterback throw a girl out so the newspapers get a hold of it and the stockholders don't like it. We don't want any of that. Let's be the team that makes the rules. Let us be the team that plays fair, gets the best contract. Let's be the popular players. We're just going to have to forget about all these nuclear power plants until we find out if they're safe. And that refinery in Pagelsham, we're just going to have to relocate it. Sure, it'll cost us $35 million, but we don't care because we're going to come out ahead in the long run. And whatever that stuff is we're making those containers out of, that plastic, we're going to have to stop till we find out what it is. We're not in here for just one game, are we, fellas? We're in here to go all the way. Now let's get to the Super Bowl, guys, and when we get there, let's already have won. Okay?
Good stuff. Now, a lot of you are a little bit more quiet during that film clip than we've been through some of our presenters. So let's remember to be respectful during our presenters. And our next presenter amazingly just told me that another one of the presenters she ran into tonight, didn't know this, saved the life of her 6-year-old son. I'll let her tell you the story. Our next presenter is going to present the Private Company Director of the Year Award. Mary Lee Schneider is currently President of Digital Solutions and Chief Technology Officer for R.R. Donnelley. Mary Lee also built Donnelley's Premedia Technologies business, one of the world's largest providers of digital photography, color services, and digital asset management services. She was recently named to Fortune magazine's Infotech Top 40. Mary Lee currently serves on the board of directors of Follett Corporation, and she also serves on the board of advisors for the Shure Corporation. Please give a very warm welcome to Mary Lee Schneider.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting. You never know who you're going to meet at one of these events, and imagine meeting the man whose hospital is responsible for saving the life of my 6-year-old. So, Paul Ramsey, where did you go? I'm blind. But thank you. And Sean, thank you. Harborview Medical Center in Seattle. And I'm from Chicago, you go figure. But great organization. So thank you very much. And I am honored tonight to be standing here to present NACD's Private Company Director of the Year Award to my friend and fellow Follett board member, Keith Alm. This award is given to a director recognized by peers and the business community for distinguished service on a private company board, and as a role model in promoting high professional standards for board and director performance. The Private Company Director of the Year Award winner was selected based on adherence to and surpassing of NACD's standards of director professionalism. These standards are integrity, mature confidence, that doesn't mean you're old, informed judgment, and high performance standards. Now, to prepare for this event, I asked Keith for names. When I found out this was less an introduction and more a 5-minute speech, and by the way, I've been warned that if I hit the 6-minute mark, a woman named Sonia will come up from my left and stand there as the virtual hook and pull me off the stage. So I'd asked the Follett board members to stand in front of the staircase so that Sonia cannot get up on the stage. But I asked Keith for names. Names, he calls them victims, but names of colleagues who would have the courage, Keith, to come forward and share their perspectives on him, particularly as they relate to the award criteria. So I am delighted to have the opportunity to tell you about Keith, not only from my perspective, but from the perspectives of others who have either worked with Keith, and some were actually direct reports, can you imagine that, in his senior leadership roles at companies such as Sara Lee and Hallmark, or who serve with Keith on the boards of McKee Foods, Beaulieu, right? I'm from the Northeast, Beaulieu, okay, of America, or on the board of the trustees of Bradley University. And I have to say, Keith was quite brave. One of his references was his fraternity brother, who is now actually a Bradley co-trustee. Let me say the feedback I received was remarkably consistent, oftentimes amusing, and above all, reaffirmed the decision of the NACD to bestow this honor upon Keith. Now, before I dive in, I have to admit that in soliciting feedback, I was surprised by how quickly and how frequently, if not insistently, people offered to provide photos of Keith. And I'm fairly certain they weren't photos suitable for framing, if you know what I mean. And in fact, there were several follow-up phone calls to ask if I needed a FedEx for today or what have you, and I'm struggling a little bit to understand how that might fit into the awards criteria, but thankfully, I think for all of us, none of the photos arrived in time for this presentation. This is, after all, a dignified event. Keith, you owe me about $100 at this point. I was also struck by the fact that several, if not all, of the interviewees claimed that they were in fact responsible, and solely responsible, for Keith's success. I suppose imitation by proxy truly is the sincerest form of flattery. So let me begin with high performance standards. No conversation about Keith can start without first acknowledging his extraordinarily high performance standards. Put simply by Eric Wiseman, who is currently the chairman and CEO of VF Corporation and a former direct report of Keith. It's a brave man who gives several direct reports' names as references. He described Keith as an all-in guy, right? There's no halfway with Keith. He's in it 100%, whether it be in matters of friendship, family, or work. Keith is 100% committed. And you're going to hear that term again and again, committed, committed. Now, Beth may have a different view, his wife, about what committed means, but Keith doesn't know any other way to live. Ed Ralston, who's a fellow board member at Beaulieu, sorry, it's my Yankee coming out, said he's a true Boy Scout. He is always prepared. Without exception, each and every person I spoke to remarked upon Keith's meticulous preparation for meetings. He's also a digger. Now, that's not from me, that's from Jeff Brown, who is an EVP of Leads Worldwide and fellow board member at McKee Foods. He's always seeking to understand. Keith has a commitment to process and process integrity, which has served him well in his duties of audit chair and committee member, particularly in the age of SOX compliance. He is thorough in his analysis of information and is not afraid to challenge assumptions or answers. From personal experience, I can tell you Keith is rigorous in his pursuit of knowledge. I would estimate that as chair of Follett's audit committee, Keith spends at least, if not more, than 300 hours per year in support of his board responsibilities. Either someone choked right there or needs the Heimlich, but yes, 300 hours a year. Not only does that time, and we have a doctor apparently in the house, where's Paul? Not only does this time include scheduled board activities, but also monthly calls with Follett's financial team, as well as on-the-ground activities, such as taking operational tours and observing field audits. Now, I've got to pause here, and there's no one to be seen on my left, and note that there is something here in Keith's behavior that does border on the compulsive. Not a few of us have remarked upon the meticulous state of Keith's apparently now infamous 3-ring binders, comprised of board materials, tabs, meeting notes, questions, and follow-up lists, going back 7 years. Keith once told me that at the end of each year, he has a commercial shredding truck This is the neighbor you want living next door to you. Pull up to his house for the purpose of disposing of all board material older than 7 years. I go to the car wash and dump it out of my trunk. Keith has a shredding truck show up. Chris Trout, it's all perfectly shredded, I swear. My comment to that is, A, it's no wonder Keith spreads his time among 3 different residences. Who has all that space, right? Aspen must be very tough. And B, perhaps it is time to seek professional help. Beth, let's talk. There is support out there. There is hope. Let's move on to mature confidence. Is there a picture of Keith that's been shown anywhere? Because it really does make the punchline. According to Jeff Brown from the McKee Foods Board, Keith is the white hair of the McKee Foods Board, which is great because he has hair at all, right? And it's white, and that works. But that one was too easy. There can be no doubt that Keith brings a certain gravitas. Gravitas. I really debated gravitas about being that one word, but there was a better one. To boardroom deliberations. I know firsthand that Keith's experience and wisdom have provided Follett a perfect mix of public and private company perspectives. Keith is able to distill complex issues down to the most essential points and provides informed advice and counsel to Follett shareholders, Follett management, and fellow board members. Never has this been more needed or more valued than over these past 18 months, as these unprecedented economic times have shaken the very core of long-held beliefs and business practices. Let's move on to informed judgment. Has anyone seen Sonia? Okay, we're in good shape. I've talked about Keith's meticulous, if not compulsive, preparation for board and committee meetings, and I've talked about the value his diverse industry and board experience brings to Follett. While those practices and attributes together create an informed opinion, Keith is not content to stop there. From attending NACD conferences and seminars, this is not a plug, to tapping into the educational resources made available by our external auditing firm, Keith avails himself of every opportunity to update his prior knowledge with current thinking. Perhaps nowhere is this more evident than by Keith's pursuit and maintenance of his Certificate of Director Professionalism from NACD. And yes, that's a plug. Taking it one step further, Keith makes sure to pass this relevant information and knowledge along to fellow board members. To that end, Keith, I want to personally thank you for the 300-page Blue Ribbon report entitled Internal Controls, A Love Story. I will return it to you once I stay awake long enough to get past page 12. Keep them coming, Keith. Send me the field audits, too. Keith provides wise, thoughtful counsel on a broad range of issues. As Eric Weissman from VF said, quote, Keith has the terrific ability to adapt his core knowledge to relevant markets, but he also knows his limitations. He has a keen feel for when his counsel is relevant and when it is better to listen to others with more firsthand experience on an issue. I think knowing when to challenge and when to listen is perhaps one of the most critical skills a board member possesses. Now let me move on to integrity. I will have missed my mark with this speech if I have not painted a picture of an individual who lives the value of integrity. It should be clear by now that Keith Alm demonstrates the highest ethical standards on both a personal and professional level. He sets a notable tone at the top. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the manner in which he conducts his duties as chair of Follett's Audit Committee. Keith is committing to holding us, a private company, to the same risk management, SOX compliance, and internal controls / testing and auditing standards as publicly held companies. Keith consistently demonstrates candor, fairness, and openness to other opinions. And he is not afraid to challenge long-standing practices and thinking. He addresses these issues with respect and sensitivity and helps a broad constituency comprised of management, family shareholders, and independent directors arrive at solutions that meet all objectives. So in conclusion, now this is a noisy crowd. Has anyone noticed that? Right? So it's probably inappropriate to say shut your pie hole in the back, but there we go. That's more like it. Everyone glare at the person to your left or right who's speaking. Shun them. They've obviously been overserved. I hope it is now obvious why Keith Alm was a deserving choice for NACD's Private Company Director of the Year award. But before I bring Keith to the podium to accept this award, I'd like to add a personal note. Keith, I have served alongside you on Follett's Board of Directors for 8 years. 8 long years. And whether you know it or not, you have served as a role model to me. I have observed your preparation, your participation, and your commitment to representing the best interest of key stakeholders of Follett Corporation. I know I speak for the full board, most of whom are right here in the front, when I say you have raised the bar for all of us. In fact, if I had one word to describe Keith, it would be committed. Committed to doing his very best to represent the interests of all stakeholders of Follett Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce Private Company Director of the Year, Keith Alm.
Thank you, Marilee. I mean, how do you follow an act like that? Marilee is just probably one of the most incredible partners, and I could probably say all the same words for her as a partner in terms of Follett's board and her leadership. Thank you, Marilee, for your kind, your generous, and I have to say, truly resourceful comments. I'd also like to thank Barbara Franklin. I'd like to thank Ken Daly and the NACD and those that served on the selection committee for bestowing this absolutely incredible honor on me. I'm truly humbled by this honor and what it represents. I'd also like to express my appreciation to the Follett Corporation and my fellow board members, starting with Kathleen Parr, Allison O'Hara. Obviously, we have Chris Trout, the CEO and president. We've got Todd Litzinger, and we have Mark Litzinger, the chairman of the board, all here tonight joining me as well. I'd also like to thank my family board, who's here this evening, my wife Beth, and my 2 sons, Keith and Michael, as well as our close friend Beth Gaudier, who are all also here joining me for this truly auspicious occasion this evening. And again, thanks to all of you at Follett Corporation, a role model corporation of corporate governance, and all of my friends and supporters for these many years of practice in the field of directorships. You know, when you start thinking about entrepreneurship, is that you all have to say the same thing. You get lost in the large corporation behavior and the dynamics of large corporations, but you know, it all has to start someplace. And more often than not, it starts with a simple germ of an idea, which is backed by passion, by true dedication, by incredible commitment, and a lot of hard work that grows into what's known as the family business enterprise. And over time, as success continues to gain even stronger footing, in new generations, the family enters the business, issues become more complex. And directions become increasingly more challenged. And yet, even through that, new frontiers are identified, and they're explored, and they're pursued. And concurrently, issues of good governance practices and policies begin taking and molding into an increasingly more important role. And so the board of directors begins playing an increasingly important role in family businesses as well. Now, in search for objective advice and counsel, now probably more than ever, given the current economic environment, an increasing number of family-run, privately held businesses look towards bringing on their boards individuals who can provide experience, plus honest, objective, unbiased skills in strategic thinking, in business operations, and in best practice governance. These individuals must also have a deep respect for the embedded family values that have guided the company thus far, and most likely will continue to guide them into the future. Also, as earlier generation shareholders become more distant from that day-to-day business, they employ the independent fiduciary. They employ the independent fiduciary as a form of insurance that the family business is being looked at ethically, objectively, strategically, and with the intent for true sustainability. This is the role of the private company independent director. Again, I am truly, truly honored, appreciative, and respectful to have been selected by the NACD as the individual in 2009 to represent this role. Thank you, NACD, and all those that participated in the selection. Again, I'm truly appreciative of this most meaningful award. Thank you very much.
Surely you don't protect Elizabeth just because her father happens to have $20 million. That's very narrow-minded. It's one thing you overlook. I have proposed and she has accepted. Don't worry, I proposed and Mr. Tyson accepted. Did you kiss him? Elizabeth is one of the loveliest girls around. Sooner or later you're going to propose to her anyway. I'm only trying to help you make up your mind. Then why don't you marry her? Me? Well, what's so funny? You want to die an old maid? Well, I was just thinking that if I were ever to get married, I'd have to take a dictaphone, 2 secretaries, and 4 corporation counsels along on the honeymoon. I'd be unfaithful to my wife every night of my married life, with vice president, boards of directors, slide rule accountants. This is my home. No wife would ever understand it. Well, neither can I. You've got all the money in the world. Well, what's money got to do with it? If making money were all there was to business, it'd hardly be worthwhile going to the office. Money is a byproduct. But what's the main objective? Power? Ah, that's become a dirty word. Well, then what's the urge? You're going into plastics now. What will that prove? A new product has been found, something of use to the world. So a new industry moves into an undeveloped area. Factories go up, machines are brought in, a harbor is dug and you're in business. It's purely coincidental, of course, that people who never saw a dime before suddenly have $1.
Everyone enjoy dinner? Dessert? All right, next, to present the Public Company Director of the Year Award, we welcome the former president and board chair of the General Mills Foundation and current senior advisor of the Council of Foundations, Dr. Retha Clark King. Retha has served on corporate boards for 29 years and currently serves on the boards of ExxonMobil Corporation, Lennox Group Incorporated, International Trachoma Initiative, the Occupational Therapy Foundation, and is a life trustee of the University of Chicago. She is a former board member of Wells Fargo Company, Minnesota Mutual Companies, and the H.B. Fuller Company. Pretty impressive. Retha has 14 honorary doctorate degrees and has been awarded numerous civic, business, and of course humanitarian awards, including the NACD's 2004 Director of the Year Award. So we are pleased and of course honored to welcome Dr. Retha Clark King.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, what a fun evening, and this is a very inspiring evening as well. It is my very special honor and privilege to present our honoree to receive the next award, NACD's 2009 Public Company Director of the Year Award. The distinguished service for this award has been clearly demonstrated that the award recipient is exceptional and extraordinary. She epitomizes what the Public Company Director of the Year stands for, what NACD stands for, and the kind of courage and oversight excellence that the public wants from all of us directors. Marilyn is well known locally, nationally, and internationally for her enduring qualities that enable her to be such an outstanding corporate director, business leader, and citizen. People cite many reasons why Marilyn's leadership is so effective in the boardroom and in all of her other endeavors. I'm amazed at how all of us participants seem to have hit the streets to verify the qualities that have made our award nominees so successful. And this is what they say about Marilyn. They cited her leadership ability and her daring spirit, daring to go where others hesitate or refuse to go. Her sense of purpose, pursuit of excellence, her high ethical standards, powerful sense of integrity, her creativity and imagination. They say she's a strong catalyst for positive change. They cite her courage and her constant nudging of organizations to perform better with higher integrity and ethical standards. Notice that I didn't say constant nagging, but if she has to do that, she will. They cite her inclusive spirit and her collaborative style. And I will tell you, she's quick to celebrate other people's successes. Marilyn's corporate board service is defined by breadth, depth, courage, and excellence. As a longtime director of several public company boards, including U.S. West, now Quest, First Bank Systems, and the ExxonMobil Company, Marilyn continues to perform as an exceptional public company director, asserting her unique leadership ability, her commitment to ethics and integrity, and her courage to question management when things do not go right. And she has the courage to comment when they do go right. Marilyn began serving on corporate boards in 1975 at a time when the voices of women, the directors, and women business leaders were not as welcome as they are today. In the mid-'70s, women were expected to be seen rather than to be heard. This makes the following examples of her courage in the boardroom all the more remarkable. I bet some of you are saying, I knew she was going to get that in there about women, but you know, we have to do it. Oh, please forgive me. In 2002, after serving on the Board of Quest and its predecessor, U.S. West, for 27 years, Marilyn made the difficult decision to resign from the board in midterm. It was at a time when the existing management of the company had made certain executive compensation decisions that were contrary to directions provided by the board. Marilyn raised her concerns with other board members and worked to pressure management to be responsive to board decisions. When this proved unsuccessful, Marilyn resigned from the board. Shortly thereafter, the first indication surfaced of various accounting irregularities at Quest, which eventually would lead to restatement of earnings and both terminations of senior management officers and, in some cases, criminal prosecutions. Marilyn's high moral and ethical standards would not permit her to tolerate, let alone condone, such actions, as she felt that her resignation, even after so many years of service, was in the best interest of the company. Quickly, another example of Marilyn's leadership and effectiveness in the boardroom had occurred during her board tenure at First Bank Systems. In 1989 and 1990, while serving on the board of First Bank Systems, Marilyn participated in board meetings where management presented information concerning certain off-balance sheet financing. She did not understand these transactions and approached her other board members to determine their understanding. The story is they didn't understand them either. She worked with these board members and pressured management for a clearer description of the matters. During this time, the First Bank System was losing money, In this case, she was successful, though, in convincing the board to stand up to management and demand further information and clarification. Eventually, the board dismissed the CEO after disclosure of unexpected losses